Am I the asshole for sabotaging my brother's wedding? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. My brother and his, fiance, they've been together for 4 years and engaged for 6 months. I hate her. I hate her so much. She is the most entitled woman I've ever met, and she thinks that she deserves everything. Her parents are super, super rich. Now, my family isn't poor, but we're definitely not as rich as her. She demands that my brother pay for everything. Like all of their rent, all of their car payments, every single thing. My brother doesn't make a lot of money, and this stresses him out a lot. Her dad offered to give my brother money so that he could basically pay for everything while she thinks that my brother actually paid for it. Even her parents know how terrible she is. She's also extremely jealous. She barely lets my brother do anything, and he's basically shut out all of his friends just to not make her angry if he wants to go out with them. This is the worst part. I walked in on her and her friends talking crap about my brother. They were all a little bit tipsy, so she wasn't measuring what she was saying. Even when I came into the room, she still kept talking trash about him. Being the good sister that I am, I grabbed her drink and threw it in her face. Now my brother's not really talking to me. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my boyfriend forces me to follow his rules in order to be his girlfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent him on Instagram. After I moved in with him and realized how much of a clean freak he is, he started implementing some rules. At first, he just said it very casually. For example, he asked me not to touch his clothes. In other words, he never wanted me to do his laundry or even fold them for him. When I went into his closet, he had a very meticulous way of putting everything away. All of his drawers were labeled. He had specific mugs for coffee. By mistake, I used a different type of mug and he actually threw that mug away. He said that it was probably going to get stained and there was no point in keeping it. When I asked him why he was so specific about all these things, he told me his anxiety would act up if I didn't do these things. So I did exactly what he wanted me to do. After a few weeks of me moving in, he handed me this booklet. In it, he had typed out all of the house rules, also a section that said girlfriend rules. For example, he didn't like me wearing short skirts. He didn't like me having long nails. He didn't like when I wore my hair in a bun. Also, if we were out with people, he would only let me sit on his left side, because that's his better side. After a few days of me trying to follow the rules, I accidentally broke one. I forgot to use a coaster on the coffee table and he ended up kicking me out that day. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my boyfriend forces me to follow his rules in order to be his girlfriend. Disclaimer, it's not my story time. I sent him on Instagram. After he kicked me out for not using a coaster of all things, I went straight to my parents' house. When I told my parents about the booklet, they thought he was legitimately crazy. A few days later, he begged me to go back and I did. He even added new things to the list. For example, I have to clean the air fryer every single time I use it. There can be no dirty dishes in the kitchen at any time. And when it comes to the girlfriend rules, he bought me a perfume that he really likes and I hate it. But I can't say no to wearing it because he gets angry. He also doesn't want me bringing any of my friends over. My best friend forgot to recycle a pizza box the last time she was at our place, and ever since then he talks trash about her. I know I should leave him, but I still do love him, and I really think that he needs help. But I have started looking for my own apartment. I live by those stupid rules and I'm terrified of breaking one. My hair has even started falling out because of it. What should I do? Storytime about how I'm still engaged after 16 years. My fiance asked me to marry him when I was 20 years old and I am now 36. It's been that long. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I've sent me on Instagram. Let's call my fiance Ted. Ted is a great guy, aside from the fact that he pushes back our wedding day all the time. A little backstory. We are both very career-driven people. We both work very hard and travel for our jobs. He works on Wall Street and I work for a beauty conglomerate. We're very wealthy, so we could be having kids right now if we wanted to. But of course, he says that we should wait until we get married. Every time I bring up the fact that we still haven't gotten married after 16 years, he gets annoyed and upset. Worst of all, we barely spend time together because we both work so much. Have to interrupt. This foundation is amazing, you guys. Where are my pores? It's from the brand M. Assam Beauty and it is cruelty-free. I don't think my skin has ever looked this good in makeup. Back to the story. I started getting really suspicious because of how many times he's pushed back the wedding. So I decided to do some research. When we first got engaged, he told me the ring was worth $45,000. I got it appraised and it turns out it's a fake ring and it's only worth $200. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how I'm still engaged after 16 years. After I found out the ring was fake, I came up with a plan to confront my fiance. I made sure to get home earlier than he did. When he came into the apartment, I was standing right by our balcony. He comes over to me and gives me a kiss. Then I take off the engagement ring and I throw it over the balcony. He pretended like he was freaking out. That's when I told him I got the ring appraised and that it was a fake, and that it was only worth $200 instead of the $45,000 he told me he spent. The man was too stunned to speak. I could tell he was trying to come up with some lie in his head, so I gave him a minute to think. Then he says that he bought the ring from a friend who's a jeweler, and that he must have scammed him out of the $45,000. After 45 minutes of arguing, I was exhausted. I decided to go to sleep. I woke up a few hours later and I overhear him on the phone. That's when I heard him say she knows that the ring is fake and I think she knows about us. Part 3 is up. This palette is also from Amazon Beauty and it's cruelty-free. These shadows blend like a dream. Go to part 3. Part 3 of how I'm still engaged after 16 years. That's when I hear my fiance on the phone saying I think she knows about us. My heart sank to my stomach. I stood there and listened to the rest of the conversation. He was whispering so it was hard to make out. All I could hear was I'll have to tell her the truth now. I went back to our room and pretended to be asleep. He comes in and wakes me up and tells me that he has to talk to me. That's when he starts telling me everything. He said when he asked me to marry me, he had every intention of doing so. But the more he traveled, the further he felt away from me. That's when he told me he met someone in his travels and that he'd been seeing this woman for 10 years. He even had a house with her in a different city. It turns out that every time he would travel, it was only to see her. My world was completely shattered. Worst of all is that he was so happy after he told me. He moved out that week and now I am totally alone. I gave him the best years of my life and my time was totally wasted. I feel like he should be punished for this, but I don't think he broke any laws. What should I do? The mascara and lip balm are also from Amazon Beauty. How good does my skin look? Bye! Storytime about how my boyfriend forces me to follow his rules in order to be his girlfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime. Send me on Instagram. We've been together for 2 years now. I feel like everyone says this, but the relationship was really good at the beginning. For the first 6 months, everything was totally fine. We had a lot of fun together. We would go out on double dates with all of our friends. We even started our own business together. After he asked me to move in with him is when everything became a nightmare. A little backstory on him. His parents didn't really care about his hygiene or their house when he was growing up. He tells me that his house was really messy, that their house was never taken care of, and that his mom is pretty much a hoarder. Now, I don't know if any of this is true because he doesn't speak to his parents anymore, so I'm assuming that it is. He told me that as a kid, he used to feel really ashamed of people coming over to his house and that he would always be cleaning up after his parents. As you can imagine, now that he's an adult, he controls everything around him. His apartment is perfect. He lives in a high-rise and his apartment is beautiful. I should say our apartment, but everything is always clean and perfect. And if it's not like that, he gets in a really bad mood. I'm talking super angry. He's never become physical, but sometimes I think he wants to. This is when the rules started. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my boyfriend criticizes everything I wear. Disclaimers are not my story time. Send me on Instagram. I completely changed the way I dress just for him. He would always find something to criticize, even down to the jewelry or hair accessories or makeup that I wore. It got to the point where if I went shopping, I would send him pictures of the stuff that I wanted to buy for him to approve. Even my nails. Anytime I went to the nail salon, I would have to send him pictures of the nail polish or any designs I wanted to do. And don't think that he's paying for stuff. No, he's not. I finally opened up to my mom and told her everything. She told my dad and they both got really upset. My dad even called my boyfriend and told him to come over. My parents told him to stop being so controlling, otherwise the relationship would be over. Of course, my boyfriend pretended to be on his best behavior, apologized and said that he wouldn't do it anymore. But when we left my parents' house, he told me I was a snitch. Then he made me promise to never tell my parents anything about our relationship again. And I know I should just break up with him, but I do love him. I've been in love with him for years, and now that I'm with him, I don't want to lose him. But I know that I've put him up on a pedestal. It's been a few weeks since my parents intervened, but my boyfriend hasn't changed a thing. I decided to buy myself a designer purse that I've been wanting for years. As soon as he saw me with the purse, he said that my privilege was showing, and that I needed to go return it as soon as possible because it was embarrassing. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my boyfriend criticizes everything I wear. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. After he told me to return the designer purse, I said no. He then explained to me why I should be embarrassed to wear it. He said people that buy designer stuff are only trying to flaunt their wealth, and that people who do that are just trying to cover up their shortcomings. So basically, I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm not good at other things, or that I don't have good qualities. I couldn't believe what he was saying to me. For the first time ever, I defended myself and I told him he needed to leave me alone. And no, I didn't return the purse, and I'm not trying to flaunt my wealth either. So here's what I did. I started returning all the clothes that I bought just to wear for him and the ones he wants me to wear in front of other people. When he saw me again, he told me that I looked terrible. He said no one would take me seriously in my outfit with my designer purse. So I drove him back to his house because no, he doesn't have a car, and I've been ignoring his calls and messages for 4 days. My plan is to start treating him the way he treated me. I'm going to control and criticize everything he wears and see how he likes it. I think this is going to make things better. I don't want to break up with him because I do love him. What do you guys think? Part 2, am I the asshole for sabotaging my brother's wedding? After I threw the drink in her face, my brother stopped talking to me. He finally heard me out and I told him everything I thought about her. And when I told him that she was talking trash behind his back, he told me that she does that all the time with her friends, and that it's just a way for her to vent. I explained to him that she should have nothing but good things to say about him. She doesn't sound like she loves him when she talks about him. By the way, she was telling her friends that my brother is basically a good for nothing, and that he didn't earn enough money for her to actually live a good life with him. Because of this, I started sabotaging the wedding in small little ways. For example, I know exactly what dress she wanted, so I called the store and ordered all of them. They're currently out of stock. She went berserk. My brother had to calm her down for like an hour. When I finally apologized for throwing the drink in her face, she asked me to help with the wedding. So she gave me the job of sending invitations. So I decided not to send any to her family. family. When she asked me about it, I told her I sent all the invitations, that they probably got lost in the mail. We all went out to dinner that night with her family and mine. She threw a whole tantrum at the restaurant. She was demanding attention. And of course, everyone was comforting her. She's a total bridezilla. Even her best friend told me that she can't stand her anymore. She also told me I couldn't invite any of my friends because we're all too artsy. Now I need your help to come up with more sabotages, because it's actually working. My brother is finally getting sick of her. He told my parents he's not sure he wants to marry her anymore. My hope is that they break up soon. I just want my brother to be happy. What do you think I should do?